Good afternoon, and we apologize for the delay in starting this basically final session of the conference. We are delighted to welcome Mr. Rached Ghannouchi. As you all know, he is the founder and the president of the Ennahda party in Tunisia. He is a very well-known Islamic thinker and scholar who has written many books and many articles on the issue of Islam and democracy, the issue of women's rights in Islam, the issue of minority rights in Islam, and human rights in general in Islam. So we are really delighted to have him here with us today. He came basically all the way from Tunisia to participate in this conference. And as we spoke today, Tunisia is going through a very important and critical transition to democracy, from dictatorship, from one of the worst dictatorships, to a democracy, hopefully, in Tunisia. And Sheikh Rached Ghannouchi, of course, is playing a very key role in this transition and in the dialogue between Islamists and secularists, and in guiding the Ennahda party in this very critical phase. So we are delighted to welcome Sheikh Rached Ghannouchi. He will speak for about half an hour, and hopefully we will have about half an hour for Q&A before we close the session and the conference. At the end we will have some concluding remarks. So it is again my pleasure to welcome Sheikh Rached Ghannouchi, and again we apologize for the delay. Thank you very much.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, prayers and peace be upon His messengers. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, my God's peace and blessing be upon you. I thank the Center for the Study of Islam and Democracy for giving me this opportunity to speak to this distinguished elite group of American scholars, experts and policymakers, as well as those coming from other countries to participate in this important conference. The title of my paper is Vision for a New Tunisia. I would like to briefly address this issue of the democratic transition in Tunisia and the challenges that we are facing. The success of the democratic transition in Tunisia is not important for Tunisia only, but for the whole region, because it will establish the first country in the region which is both democratic and Muslim. That is why in Tunisia we feel the burden of this responsibility and try our best to make it succeed. Our revolution is not for export, but we hope that a successful model can influence the rest of the region. Since before the elections, we announced that we will choose to govern through a coalition with other secular parties. We could have formed our government by getting the support of independents, but we chose to form a coalition that had the widest degree of support across the political spectrum. We believe that in transitional period, simple majority government isn't enough. But we need a wide coalition to send a message that the country is for all and not just the majority. We believe that moderate Islamists and moderate secularists can and should work together, and that they both should find compromises to build consensus across the spectrum. We have tried hard to avoid ideological polarization because this is a recipe for chaos and failure. That is why we have made many consensus, whether in government or in the constitution, so as to avoid this danger. We believe in the need for coexistence between secularists and Islamists in the framework of the Troika with the Congress for the Republic Party and the Democratic Forum for Work and Liberties at Takatul, on the basis of a number of convictions, including, first, there is no contradiction between democracy and Islam. Democracy does not mean that governance should be particularly granted to secularists while considering the Islamists as enemies of the state who should be either imprisoned or exiled. It does not also mean excluding secularists from power and marginalizing their role in authority and in drafting the constitution, simply because they did not get a majority in the election. Second, Islamists' arrival to power does not mean that they will dominate the state, the society and the revolution, because they are the most popular party, as practiced by tyrannical systems. The state's role is not to impose a certain way of life on the people, but its role is to provide security and services to the people, then let them make their own choices with regards to their way of life. Third, the conflict between secularists and Islamists, which has continued for decades in our world, wasted enormous energies and helped dictatorship in their control of our countries. Therefore, the alliance between Islamists and secularists is important for the establishment of democracy and free society, able to handle its differences. Ladies and gentlemen, on the question of the Constitution. The Constitution is an important document as it limits the governments and the rulers' authorities and forces it to abide by the law. We have precedent in Islamic history in the form of what is known as As-Sahifa, Sahifat al-Medina, which came at the time of the establishment of the first Islamic state constituted by the Prophet himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Peace upon him. This constitution established a pluralistic state that brought together different ethnicities and religions, established citizenship as the basis of rights and responsibilities. We are happy that over the last few days in Tunisia, the committees of the Constitution Assembly have finally managed to finish working on the last draft of the Constitution. This will hopefully be presented to the whole Assembly over the next few days. The guiding principle for us in this constitution is that it should not just be the constitution of the simple majority, but that it should be the constitution of all Tunisians. That all Tunisians can see themselves in this constitution and that they feel that it represents them all, whether in the majority or in minority. In order to achieve this, we have organized wide consultations with the different political players and with civil society organizations. In this process, we try to develop wide consensus around the constitution. However, when we face serious differences around issues like Sharia, the political system, whether presidential or parliamentary, around the freedom of conscience, the universality of human rights, we had to organize a national dialogue between the main parties to reach consensus. And this lasted for nearly 5 weeks and ended up in reaching compromises around the different issues. Hence, we accepted not to include Sharia in the constitution because this notion of Sharia, this notion wasn't clear to some Tunisians, some secular Tunisians. With regards to the political system, although we chose the parliamentary system initially, we ended up in compromises where we have a mixed system, where the executive power is divided between the president and the chief of government. We also made compromises by accepting the universality of human rights and the freedom of conscience. Some people within our party accuse us in the leadership that we have become the party of compromise. But we say that as the majority party, we have a greater responsibility to make the necessary compromises to help our country move forward. We believe that we have now a draft constitution that brings together the values of Islam and combines them with the values of modernity and democracy. This had been the dream of the great reforms since the 19th century, and we hope that through ratifying the constitution that we would have realized this dream. The new constitution incorporates all the values of equality, the different freedom and rights, and the separation of powers. We hope that once the constitution is approved, then the whole country will start preparing for its second election, which we hope will be free and fair, and we hope that many of our friends across the world will come to observe and monitor the elections. We hope that all the different parties will be participating. One flower does not make a spring. That is why this election is very important to prove that the democracy process cannot be reversed. Now, I would like to speak quickly about the challenges that we face in Tunisia. The first challenge is the economic, social one. We all know that this factor was one of the main elements behind the revolution. We are faced with many problems. The first is that people's expectations are very high and their patience is very low. Also, the economic situation in our main trading partners in Europe is affecting our exports and affecting tourism. Despite these problems, the government has managed to reduce unemployment by 2% from 18 to 16%. Also, growth went up from 2% when we took over to 3.5 for 2012. The number of tourists had also gone up, and we received last year 6 million tourists. However, the young people who made the revolution in Sidi Bouzid and Gasrin have not seen any improvement in their life, and this is a challenge that will need many years to tackle. The second challenge is the security challenge. The revolution has weakened the state and its authority. This has given an opportunity to different groups to try to push the boundaries and cross the law. Extremists on both sides, whether on the religion right or on the extreme left, have tried to impose their views with no respect to the law. We tell those groups that do not think for one moment that democracy are weak. Slowly, we are rebuilding the state's authority, but not on fear as it used to be under the dictatorship regime, but it's based on the rule of law. With regards to the Salafi issue, I would like to stress that this phenomena is first the fruit of the Ben Ali regime and not the fruit of democracy. Secondly, the phenomena of Salafism is a complex one, therefore it needs a complex solution. We see, for example, that this phenomena exists in the poor areas. Therefore, development needs to be part of the solution. Also, we need to know that this phenomena is diverse and that it's not all violent. Therefore, we need to push as many of the Salafists away from violence in order to isolate the violent ones and make them a minority. So we like to attract them to work within the law. This can be achieved through dialogue and through convincing them that an understanding of Islam is wrong and that they need to work within the law if they want their full rights as citizens. Then, third element in the solution is the security one. Those who want or try to break the law or to impose their views on others with violence have to deal with the severely. This is what the government has done over the last year by imprisoning hundreds of those who tried to break the law, and in some instances also killing nearly 14 of them when they tried to smuggle the weapons from Libya or to face the army or the police. In violent confrontation with the security forces. This security solution, however, needs to be governed by the respect for human rights and the law, and not as in the time of the dictatorship. The fall of the dictatorial regime in Tunisia was the spark that launched the Arab Spring. There is no doubt that the success of the Tunisian experience will lead to the promotion of this peaceful and democratic path. Tunisia has shown that the Arab Spring is not turning into a fundamentalist winter. Today, we can assure you that it will not turn into fundamentalist religious or secular winter, but into a democratic spring that will have, where all have a place, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum.